I mean, these fish are feeding. You don't have to wait on them and shake it up and down. I caught a bunch of fish yesterday. Just pitch it in, and when you pick up, he's sort of either pulling back or your line swimming off. One of the two. Either one of them I love. And this is my jig rod for just about any time of year. Up to a 1/2 ounce jig, it's a 7.5 Halo. It's a Canterbury Signature Series rod. And one thing that I did in this rod is basically for nothing but fishing a jig. You can't hardly cast with it. You can, but it's not good for casting. It's not a super versatile rod, but this is my rod I designed for fishing a jig. It's got a little bit of a softer tip, but it's got a lot of backbone. When you get to that 4th eye, it turns into all backbone. And the biggest thing that people pick it up and they see is a little short handle. I've got like a 10-inch handle on here. But I don't need to, when I'm flipping a jig, I mean, especially up to a 1/2 ounce jig, I'm not burying it up in a thick mat and I'm having to horse on him with 60-pound braid to get him out. I mean, and I don't have anything in the way, anything hitting my rain suit, my rain jacket, anything. I mean, I can just pitch it in left-handed, right-handed, whatever I want to do. I don't have anything in the way. I got a 7.3-to-1 Arctic Grand reel I can pick up plenty of slack with, so I just don't need that back here. I don't need an extra 6 inches of handle when I'm flipping a 1/2 ounce jig. Now, when I get into a big jig, I want a little longer handle, something that comes under my elbow, something I can get in my stomach and get a fish out of cover with. But this time of year, and anytime I'm fishing a jig, that's my rod. It's a short handle rod. Check them out. But that's a dock rod or whatever you want to use it for, and it works for me, and it's been a good one. But I don't have to do that with a jig. So your hook set doesn't have to be, I used to think that your hook set had to be everything you had on fishing a jig. And today I'm using, you know, if I'm fishing a jig that time of year, and I'm going to be using 17 or 20 pound test P-line, 100% fluorocarbon. It's what I flip with. Other baits, I'll tell you some more about a different line. I use 100% fluorocarbon when I'm pitching or flipping, or if I'm in pretty much anytime I'm pitching or flipping, no matter what kind of cover it is. If it's not braid, it's 100% line. This line is a harder line than there are others. It takes abrasion resistance more, has more shock resistance, and you don't have any stretch with it. So that's the reason I use that. Is really good line. So anytime pre-spawn, I'm gonna start with a 1/2 ounce jig because you're not having to force feed these fish. They're actively feeding.
One more question on that.
Yep.
1/2 ounce jig, is that more for efficiency or drawing?
100%. 100% efficiency. I started, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about Beaver Lake. When I won FLW back then with Beaver Lake, I was fishing transition banks going into the tournament, and the first day of the tournament I was using a small compact jig. And this time of year, I mean, somebody's already touched on it, but this time of year I'm a big believer in putting a little orange dye on there. I was using a creature bait yesterday a lot too, and it was dyed half of it orange. But anyhow, I was using a 3/8, no, I was using a 1/2 ounce little Luke Clawson compact flipping jig at Beaver Lake, fishing transitions. And that was leaving those steep banks where it transitioned out, and these fish started moving up. I started getting bit the second day of the tournament, closer and closer to the bank. All right, at about 11 or 12 o'clock the second day of that tournament, I switched over and quit using a little compact jig. I went to a Canterbury Series 1/2 ounce and even a 5/8. By the end of the tournament, I was strictly 5/8. On day 4 of that tournament, it was strictly a 5/8, 25 pound test line, and it was strictly going down the bank, doing this right here all day. Like, I never slow down. Hit that, anything I can see, we'll get into that too, but it's all about covering water. It's all about covering water, being efficient with your bait, getting it in and out of the strike zone fast as you can.